When you gaze up into the stars, what do you feel? Awe, wonder, the power of the universe? The philosopher that seems to truly comprehend the incomprehensibility of the night sky was Immanuel Kant. Interestingly, many people think Kant's best work came from the Critique of Pure Reason and the Critique of Practical Reason, but I actually think Kant shines brightest in the Critique of Judgment, in his account of the sublime. Kant distinguishes between two forms of the sublime, the mathematical sublime and the dynamical sublime. The mathematical sublime is concerned with how something can be so big that it overwhelms your mind. Kant gave examples such as the pyramids, the mountains, or even the countless stars in the galaxy. The dynamical sublime deals with overwhelming power and force, such as volcanoes, storms and lightning strikes, and even tornadoes. But for Kant, the important part is not merely that something is big, it is that our imagination struggles to comprehend it as a whole, while reason can still reach toward an idea of totality beyond what we can picture, and this elevates us. Kant was a big thinker, in a sense that he contemplated existence as a whole. In fact, before Kant wrote the three critiques, he was already thinking cosmologically. In his 1755 Universal Natural History and the Theory of the Heavens, he speculated about the natural formation of solar systems, the structure of the Milky Way, and the possibility that some nebulae were other galaxy-like systems. And in this sense, I think Stardust Dragon is the perfect symbol for Kant, because it's literally a dragon of the sky, stars, space, and galaxy. Stardust Dragon captures the mathematical sublime, the same way we feel awe and wonder as we gaze upon the stars. Stardust Dragon is also the prize monster of Yusei Fudo, and Yusei is very close to Kant, morally speaking. First, Yusei is extraordinarily rational and self-controlled. He is a man of reason. Rarely does he ever act out of impulsivity, or lie, or let his emotions get the best of him. Kant was one of the defining philosophers of the Enlightenment, and the Enlightenment placed enormous faith in the power of human reason, the idea that individuals could think for themselves, rather than simply submitting to an inherited authority. Yusei has this spirit, especially as an engineer when he's programming and repairing duel runners. However, one could argue that Kant also placed a limit on the Enlightenment. In the Critique of Pure Reason, he argued that we cannot know things as they are in themselves. And honestly, this opens up what feels to me like a terrifying chasm in philosophy. If theoretical reason cannot penetrate reality as it exists, beyond human experience, then what happens to freedom, to morality, to God? Are these things simply lost because of the limits of knowledge? Weirdly, there is a striking Christian remnant in Kant that people notice. Not only did Kant say, I had to deny knowledge in order to make room for faith, but in the Critique of Practical Reason, Kant emphasizes a morality of rationality and doing one's duty. Morality isn't about doing what you want, but doing it because it's right, even if the consequences are adverse to yourself. In practice, this morality is weirdly Christian and sacrificial. Yusei is Kantian in this sense because although he is rational and does the right thing, his choices appear to be sacrificial. Yusei repeatedly takes on a strangely Christ-like role. In the same way that Jesus Christ sacrifices himself for the sins of humanity, he is always selflessly putting himself aside for his friends. There's a really great line when Yusei was going to break out of prison with Alex, and when he realized he couldn't bring his friends Yanagi and Tanner along, he decided to stay in prison.
I won't ditch my friends for my own benefit. I'm not leaving them behind just to get ahead. That's just not what I'm about, Alex.
But it's difficult to say what philosophy ultimately drives Yusei. Is it Kantian duty, Christian sacrifice, Aristotelian virtue and friendship, or an interesting combination of all three? Temperamentally, Yusei actually resembles the ancient Stoics. No matter what happens to him, he usually holds himself together, accepts what he cannot change, and immediately begins acting on what he can. There's only a few instances where Yusei cracks like a normal person, like when he almost lost to his ex-friend Callan. So maybe Yusei is stoic in temperament, but Aristotelian in his devotion to friendship, and ultimately Kantian Christian in the sacrificiality of his actions. For example, I think Yusei's sacrificial nature is most clearly demonstrated when he duels Akisa and her prized monster card, Black Rose Dragon. In the first duel, Yusei tries to show her that he's her friend, not her enemy. Akisa refuses to believe him because she still believes everyone hates her because she's too powerful. Instead of giving up, Yusei persists despite the pain and suffering it causes him. At one part of the duel, he's literally bound up and sadistically attacked by Akisa's rose tentacles, almost like Jesus when he's wearing a crown of thorns. As the duel progresses, Akisa's power only gets more chaotic, especially after summoning Black Rose Dragon. Multiple times, Akisa tries to use Black Rose Dragon's special ability to destroy all cards on the field, and even the actual stadium that they're dueling in. But every time, Yusei responds by using Stardust Dragon's own special ability, which allows it to sacrifice itself to negate an effect that would destroy cards on the field, and then return again during the end phase. This is very similar to Jesus Christ, when he sacrifices himself for the sins of humanity only to be resurrected. This becomes even clearer in the second duel between Yusei and Akisa. In this duel, Black Rose Dragon doesn't destroy all cards on the field, but instead is equipped with Thorn of Malice. This allows Black Rose Dragon to essentially torture Stardust Dragon every turn instead of triggering Stardust Dragon's savior effect. In many ways, it really is like Jesus being tortured on the cross. Yusei never gives up, because at the end of the day, he still believes in the good of Akisa and wants to be her friend, and by the end of the duel, he saves her. What's really cool is that the duels between Yusei and Akisa seem to capture the balance between the mathematical and dynamical sublime. Black Rose Dragon seems to embody the dynamical sublime because it emulates Kant's examples, like the tornado, volcano, and lightning storms. Stardust Dragon, on the other hand, represents the mathematical sublime because it's the dragon of the stars that provokes awe and wonder. Black Rose Dragon overwhelms us through catastrophe. Stardust Dragon overwhelms us through the cosmos. One is sublime because it destroys every boundary in its path. The other is sublime because it points toward a vastness beyond anything we can fully comprehend. One is chaotic, and the other is stabilizing. Yusei does not answer Akisa's destructive power with greater destruction. He endures it, and contains it, and keeps trying to reach the person beneath it. It's almost as though the mathematical sublime gives us a religious feeling, not because we have proven God, but because the finite mind suddenly feels addressed by something immeasurably greater than itself. One of my favorite quotes by Kant is, "Two things fill the mind with ever new and increasing admiration and awe, the starry heavens above me and the moral law within me." Every time I read this quote, I can't help but think of Yusei riding alongside Stardust Dragon. Yusei embodies the moral law within, rational, self-controlled, and willing to sacrifice himself for others. Stardust Dragon embodies the starry heavens above, vast, cosmic, and sublime. But what makes Stardust Dragon so perfect is that he unites both sides. He comes from the heavens, but his defining act is sacrifice. The cosmos is above us, and the moral law is within us. Stardust Dragon turns both into a beautiful monster.